Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. Tragedy in north central Florida as a crash involving a bus and a truck leaves 8 people dead and more than 40 others injured. Evacuation orders have been given to residents of Fort Nelson, British Columbia, where a massive wildfire in their region continues to grow. And a new Nanos poll suggests if a federal election was held today, the Trudeau Liberals would be wiped out. Political columnist Brian Lilly will have the details.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. 8 people died and around 45 others were injured when a bus carrying farm workers collided with a pickup truck in north central Florida on Tuesday morning. Police say the bus then swerved off the road, crashed through a fence, and ended up on its side. The workers were being taken to a farm that supplies grocery stores in both Canada and the United States with watermelons and peanuts. The westbound lanes on Highway 40 were closed for most of the day. The National Transportation Safety Board has been brought in to investigate the collision. More evacuation orders have been issued for the community of Fort Nelson, BC, as the wildfire in their region continues to grow. BC Wildfire Service says the blaze has now grown from 53 to 84 square kilometers over the last 24 hours. The forecast is calling for wind that may blow the fire closer to the town of 4,700 and the neighboring Fort Nelson First Nation, which have been under an evacuation order since Friday. The district has told residents to grab what they need and drive south to an evacuation center located in Fort St. John. Meanwhile, here in Alberta, the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo is under an evacuation alert due to a wildfire which is burning 16 kilometers southwest of Fort McMurray in the northeast part of the province. The fire is around 5,500 hectares, which is deemed out of control. It was just 1,500 hectares on Saturday. Alberta Wildfire says there are around 49 active wildfires burning here in our province. Environment and Climate Change Canada has issued air quality statements for many regions of the province where wildfire smoke is having an impact. Alberta Health Services offered some tips to protect yourself and your loved ones from the wildfire smoke. They say those who are most vulnerable, including folks with COPD and asthma, should limit their activity outdoors and keep a close eye on the worsening symptoms. Officials say it's very important to keep an eye on the symptoms if you smell or taste smoke in the air. They say to remain indoors with windows, doors, and air circulation vents closed. Now, if you have to drive, however, run your car fan on recirculate mode to avoid drawing in the outdoor air. AHS says if you are having health issues as a result of the poor air quality from the wildfire smoke, to call a registered nurse 24 hours a day, 7 days a week by simply dialing 811. Well, we saw a bit of moisture across much of southwestern Alberta today, which cleared out some of the smoky conditions in our area. Jeanette Rocher is now with a quick peek at the forecast. Jeanette, it appears as though the rain clouds have moved on.
Yeah, well, at least for now, Hal, I will say that it could return later on this week, but we saw that nice sunshine this afternoon, and we're making way for clear skies this evening, mainly sun and cloud tomorrow with a beautiful high of 21 degrees. After that, the moisture should return for us Wednesday night with a slight chance of showers. We could also see that rain return again on a Friday and Friday night, right in time for the long weekend, and I will be back later in the show with that long weekend forecast.
Looking forward to it. Thanks so much, Jeanette. Federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says his party is introducing a new bill that would keep hard drugs out of hospitals. He made the announcement during a stop in Vancouver on Tuesday.
Imagine you've just given birth to a newborn, and instead of enjoying this precious, once-in-a-lifetime moment, you smell hard drugs in the air. Crack or meth being smoked just a few hospital rooms over. Imagine you've been in a car accident, you're fighting for your life, and someone in the bed next to you lights up a crack pipe. You look down and see that that person has a large machete in their bag. You tell the nurse or the doctor, and they say, sorry, it's allowed now, and we've been forbidden from touching or taking away these weapons and drugs, so you're just going to have to hope that this person does not harm you.
If a federal election was held today in Canada, the Trudeau government would be wiped out. Now, that's according to a new poll by Nanos, which says that Pierre Poilievre-led Conservatives have a 20-point lead over the Trudeau Liberals. Political reporter and Sun columnist Brian Lilly says the Tories are popular right now in all regions of the country.
When you've got, two Liberals in Alberta right now, two Liberals and one New Democrat. You might have one New Democrat after the next election. British Columbia has about 17 Liberals. Expect that to drop into single digits. Where on the single digits? We don't know. Manitoba, probably going to drop down to about 4 Liberals, if that, in the next election. And in Ontario, where more than half the Liberal caucus is right now, they're going to be decimated.
Mr. Lilly will also discuss why officials at universities across the country are hesitant to pull down the pro-Palestinian encampments right now. You'll have details coming up later in our broadcast. Palestinian officials say Israeli airstrikes in central Gaza killed 12 more people on Tuesday. The civil defense said its first responders recovered 8 bodies from a 3-story house that was flattened near a refugee camp.
أحد النازحين في البيت تم استهداف في البيت الساعة 11 من قبل الطائرات الإسرائيلية بصاروخين مع العلم أنه قام عدد من أهل رفح جماعة أهل رفح بالنزوح إلى هين كان موجود في البيت ما يقارب 70 شخص وتم استهداف البيت ومن الحمد لله تم استشهاد زوجتي وأولادي 5 والوالد وأخواتي وهناك عشرات النازحين عشرات الشهداء تحت الأنقاض لا زلنا لا نستطيع إنقاذهم.
Israeli President Isaac Herzog officiated an annual ceremony on Israel's 76th Independence Day on Tuesday, recognizing 120 soldiers. Now, during this ceremony, Herzog said that Israel had experienced the pain of bereavement and had hoped for the return of hostages which are still being held by Hamas in Gaza.
אני שב ואומר, אין גדולה ממצוות פדיון שבויים, וכפי שאמרתי, עלינו לפעול באומץ ולבחור בחיים. לא ננוח ולא נשקוט, לא ננוח ולא נשקוט, עד שישובו בנות ובנים לגבולם.
Rabbi Sidney Speakman from the Joyful House of Prayer here in Lethbridge spoke about a potential 2-state solution involving Israel and Palestine. Speakman says that the idea of 2 states has been turned down many times before, and not by Israel.
Every time Israel has offered a 2-state solution, the Palestinians have turned it down. They tried it with Gaza and they got war. There's 2 songs that they chant in Arabic. Today we fight on Saturday, tomorrow we fight on Sunday. Today we kill the Jews, tomorrow we kill the Christians.
Now, the Canadian and American governments have both gone on record saying they would like to see a 2-state solution. The Alberta government says it is investing just over $1.7 million for student spaces and post-secondary education programs that will help recruit and train rural, remote, and Indigenous teachers across the province. The one-time investment will support Bachelor of Education programs at both the University of Calgary and at the University of Alberta in Edmonton. Officials say the funds will support 59 students who are pursuing their teaching careers. The province also announced more funding to help end gender-based violence. Social Services Minister Cyril Turton says his government's commitment of $10 million over the next few years to sexual assault centers will help survivors receive the help and compassionate care they need.
We've also committed an additional $10 million for women's shelters to help stabilize capacity and support innovative programs and services. And our work doesn't just end there. With funds through the National Action Plan to End Gender-Based Violence, Children and Family Services launched the Prevention of Family Violence campaign. This campaign, and you'll see the posters next to me, is aimed at increasing awareness of the Family Violence Info Line, as well as the supports we have for survivors, their loved ones, and those struggling with abusive behaviors who want to change. A First Nations college said that their students held a sharing circle to talk about the campaign. Some groups plan to use a video testimonial in their men's counseling, which features a man who got help with ending his cycle of violence through government-funded programming.
Within the framework of Sexual Violence Awareness Month, the Chinook Sexual Assault Centre here in Lethbridge continues to hold workshops and educational activities for the community and its workers. Christine Cassie, the group's CEO, says there are a number of activities planned for young people.
in the province of Alberta that they've dedicated the month of May as Sexual Violence Awareness Month. So we have several activities going on. Now at the Crossings Branch Library, we just have some engagement activities for young people to partake in that actually talk about issues of consent. What is consent? What are some of the roles and responsibilities we have when it comes to digital images? So when things are being shared and what privacy means. I think it's been about 500 people that we've been able to reach, so that's been really good. And so again, we know that information is power. The more information that we can get out there, the more education that can happen around issues of sexual abuse and sexual assault, the more that we can actually create that change to actually have that end in our society.
Cassie says one of the programs for the CSAC is dedicated to giving children and youth who've experienced sexual and emotional abuse a safe place to receive the support and resources they need throughout the entire disclosure, investigation, and judicial process. Lethbridge City Council voted unanimously to put forward $15,000 toward a marketing campaign to recruit more family physicians to our city. Officials say it'll be in collaboration with a number of organizations, including Alberta Health Services South Zone, Chinook Primary Care Network, and Economic Development Lethbridge. Officials say the updated plan will add new initiatives, which includes advocating for physicians in specialty areas.
We've heard loud and clear in our community the importance of obviously the importance of everyone having a doctor, but not only that, specialty services as well. Many folks are traveling to Calgary and some even as far as Edmonton, and we've lost a lot of these specialty services within our community, doctors, and so for that reason, we thought it was of importance to step up as a community.
The Family Physician Action Plan will be updated with a report sent to Council no later than the end of July. The City of Lethbridge is launching a new outreach campaign as part of its encampment strategy. They say this new model, which combines the efforts of Lethbridge Police and the Watch program, will help our most vulnerable along with others here in our community. City officials say the Watch will be able to expand its current scope with help from outreach specialists from community social development to adapt and respond to community needs in real time. General Manager of Community Social Development, Andrew Malcolm, says while changes may not be visible, help is still being provided.
With the changes that we've proposed and are moving forward with now, the general public really won't notice a difference. What we want to do for the general public is continue with the consistency that they would have seen in 2023, with an ability to report an encampment, and that in a fairly short turnaround, they will see that encampment being taken down, and those individuals that are in the encampment being offered supports to connect them to social services and hopefully ultimately housing.
The current encampment strategy costs close to $876,000 per year, with just over $153,000 coming from the operating budget this year. WestJet announced plans to transition its WestJet Link service to WestJet Encore. The change will take effect on October the 27th. It will go from offering 3 flights to just a single daily flight between Lethbridge and Calgary and Medicine Hat and Calgary. The company says in a news release that the change will complete their capacity purchase agreement with Pacific Coastal Airlines and is in line with their regional growth strategy. Director of Corporate Services with the city, Jason Elliott, gives his thoughts on the economic impact of the reduction of flights in and out of the Windy City.
It's hard to say. I mean, right now there are 3 flights a day, which provides options for residents, for those in the region flying to Calgary. The good news, I guess, is the airplane that will be used is a larger airplane. It's a 78 passenger capacity airplane as opposed to the 34 seats that are on our current flights. The schedule that WestJet has proposed, which residents and customers can look at online effective immediately, indicates that it's an early morning flight and returning to Lethbridge late in the day, again around that midnight time frame, which allows for connections to be made. So with that early morning flight at 7 o'clock in the morning, most connections out of Calgary should be not a problem.
Businesses in our city may soon find it a little bit easier to break in the U.S. market thanks to a collaboration between Economic Development Lethbridge and Great Falls Development Alliance. The folks at EDL recently hosted their American counterparts as they took them on tours through several of our regional facilities, including Maple Leaf Pork, Whole Leaf Greenhouse, and Little Gem Winery. Now, it's part of a collaboration to discuss opportunities to grow and diversify the food, agriculture, bioprocessing, and energy industries in both cities. Sandra Dufresne is EDL's Cluster Development Manager for Canada's Premier Foods Corridor, and she says the partnership makes sense as the 2 areas have similar climates and growing conditions for agriculture.
Their trading area is similar in size to ours. Their trading, the area they cover goes right to the Alberta border, and similar focuses in terms of investment attraction. So some of the things that we hope that we've declared in the MOU is work together to help our businesses enter new markets. So, let's say a Lethbridge business has an interest in moving into the US market and chooses Great Falls or part of that trading area. Well, now we have a partner who can help them, push away the barriers, get them to understand the rules, and vice versa.
Lethbridge and Great Falls are located around 250 kilometers apart and are considered the first mid-sized cities in Alberta and Montana after crossing the international border when traveling via Highway 4 in Alberta and Interstate 15 in Montana. Well, it was quite the light show in many parts of Alberta last weekend. So many of us were able to enjoy the beautiful northern lights. Brady Sherwood, president of the Lethbridge Astronomy Society, spoke about all of the color that we recently enjoyed. He explains how the aurora borealis actually works.
These particular lights that we saw, these are the largest, the biggest storm that we've seen in about 20 years. And it's caused particularly by these two big sunspot clusters that's on the surface. And these sunspots are regions of intense magnetic activity on the surface of the sun. The northern lights, or aurora borealis, is caused by the interaction of the Earth's of charged particles from the sun with the Earth's magnetic field. And then the various colors you see are caused by the charged particles interacting with the gases within the atmosphere.
Sherwood adds that the brightest part of the light show we saw lasted for about 30 minutes, but the entire show exceeded 3 hours. Well, we had more of an overcast day today with a little bit of rain, but it appears as though the thunder booming clouds are moving on. A full look at the weather picture is coming up. Well, we saw a little bit of moisture again today here in Lethbridge. It appears as though things may be clearing up a bit here in southwestern Alberta. Jeanette Rocher is now with a full look at the weather picture. Jeanette, is that picture looking like we may see more sunshine and above average temperatures?
Yeah, other than some slight showers expected overnight on Wednesday and then possibly again Friday. We are looking at mainly sunny conditions with a little bit of moisture here and there. So 21, beautiful day tomorrow on Wednesday with a mix of sun and cloud. Thursday, mainly cloudy skies after a slight chance of showers Wednesday night. 19 for a high on Thursday. Then we're getting a little bit cooler on Friday, down to 15 degrees. That's when we could see a little bit more shower activity starting Friday evening. And to Saturday, mainly cloudy skies, high of 12 degrees. Sunday, 16, mix of sun and cloud. We could see a few showers in there as well. And then Victoria Day on Monday with a high of 19 degrees. So it never fails. That May long weekend every year seems to not be a hot one. You can almost set your watch by it. Okay, average high for this time of year, 18 degrees right there. 4 is the average low for this time of year. 31 was our record high on this day that happened back in 1939. And in 2000, we had a record low, which was -3 on this day. 5:47, that is when the sun rose this morning. Sunset this evening at 9:09 p.m., giving us 15 hours and 22 minutes of daylight, 2 minutes longer than yesterday. So nice to see that sun setting in the 9 o'clock hour now. Sunshine across the west coast tomorrow, high of 19 degrees, looking at a 30K wind in the Juan de Fuca Strait. 18 in Vancouver, but more like 22 the further inland you go there. Edmonton looking at 60% a chance of showers tomorrow with a risk of thunderstorms, 15 for a high there. Increasing clouds across Calgary tomorrow with a high of 20 degrees. As we get into the rest of the prairies, we could be seeing a little bit of moisture, 21 degrees. Oh, sorry, not there yet. 21 degrees in Saskatoon, looking at a 30% chance of showers with a risk of thunderstorms. Same thing for Regina there with that risk of thunderstorm in the afternoon. Winnipeg sitting at 13 tomorrow. We're looking at 5 to 10 millimeters of rain, so quite a bit of rain there. There we go. Now I can move over to the other side. Toronto looking at 20 degrees tomorrow with a 30% chance of showers and 40% chance of rain in both Ottawa and Montreal tomorrow. High of 18 in Ottawa, 22 the expected high tomorrow in Montreal. As we get into Atlantic Canada, Fredericton, we're looking at a high tomorrow of 23 degrees. Could see some shower activity there as well. Clear skies across Halifax and Charlottetown tomorrow with nice temperatures as well. 22 in Halifax, high of 20 in Charlottetown, 11 degrees for a high in St. John's, and looking at 2 to 4 millimeters of rain there. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
Frito-Lay Canada is recalling 2 of its most popular snacks due to the risk of salmonella contamination. The recall affects all sizes of Sun Chips Harvest Cheddar flavored multigrain snacks and the Munchies Original Snack Mix. Frito-Lay says this voluntary action stems from the seasoning supplier informing the company that an ingredient added by a third party was potentially contaminated with salmonella bacteria. The recalled products are sold throughout Canada and have a guaranteed fresh date of July 16th through August the 13th. Via Rail says it carried 25% more riders last year compared to 2022. Company officials say the numbers, however, are still short of pre-pandemic levels. The Crown Corporation says around 4.1 million passengers hopped aboard its trains in 2023. Via says the higher demand boosted revenues by 29% to $430.7 million. The figures, however, sat well below Via's ridership record of 5 million set back in 2019. Its operating loss increased 8% year over year to $381.8 million. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was down 15 points on the day to finish at 22,243. The Dow was up 126 points to 39,558. The S&P 500 was up 25 on the day to 5246, and the Nasdaq was up 122 points to 16,511. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down 68 cents to 78.44 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 4 cents to 2.34 US. Gold was up 21.79 on the day to 23.5812 US an ounce, and silver was up 42 cents to 28.62 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $9.53 per bushel, barley's at $6.42, canola's at $14.11, and corn is at $8 per bushel. Live cattle June contract was up $2.60 to $178.18. Feeder cattle were up $3.90 to $243.28, and lean hogs were up 38 cents to 91.83. The Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours to 73.25 US. Recapping one of our top stories, Lethbridge City Council voted unanimously to put $15,000 towards a marketing campaign to recruit more family physicians to our city. Officials say it will be in collaboration with a number of organizations, including Alberta Health Services South Zone, Chinook Primary Care Network, and Economic Development Lethbridge. Officials say the updated plan will add new initiatives, which includes advocating for physicians in specialty areas. You know, if an election was held right now, the Trudeau government would be wiped out. That's according to a recent Anos poll, which says the Conservatives are gaining ground all across the country. Political reporter and Sun columnist Brian Lilly will have details for us momentarily. Listen, when you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. Also, be sure to visit our website anytime to check out a number of stories and interviews. As rallies in support of the Palestinian people continue across the country, the tent encampments at the University of Calgary came down pretty quickly. But for the encampments across the rest of the country, that's a bit of a different story. Now, to chat about some of the unrest we've been seeing lately at our post-secondaries is political reporter and Sun columnist Brian Lilly, who joins us once again from Toronto. Brian, why are officials in other areas of the nation taking longer to take down the encampments? I mean, some of them have been set up as long as the supporters were in Ottawa for the Freedom Convoy a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it's because they're the right kind of protest, I suppose. McGill University is coming up on 3 weeks. University of Toronto is 2 weeks, either tomorrow or the next day. UBC is about the same. And you've got university administrators negotiating with these organizations that are asking for the most ridiculous things. A lot of universities have endowments, they have investments. These investments, though, aren't normally, in specific stocks, in specific companies. They're in mutual funds, they're in different sorts of investment vehicles that might invest in a whole range of companies. But these activists, these protesters, will go through and find that one company that does some business with the state of Israel and say, you must divest of all of this, because this is an outgrowth of the boycott, divest, and sanction movement, a very virulent anti-Israel, anti-Semitic philosophy that seeks to completely isolate Israel. And so that's what they're trying to do right now. Harvard University in the United States has just capitulated, from what I'm reading online, and is agreeing to the demands of the protesters. The University of Toronto is likely headed down that same path, and it's incredibly difficult to watch. McGill University in Montreal, they've gone to the courts. They've asked for an injunction to be able to remove the protesters. Look, university campus is private property. You should not be able to go in and live there. And I'm taking the same position, Hal. You'll remember my position on the Freedom Convoy setting up on Wellington Street in Ottawa for 3 to 4 weeks was not always popular, but I am a rule of law guy from start to finish. Just because you are protesting a political cause and because your right to protest is guaranteed by the Charter doesn't mean you get to live wherever you want, whether that's Wellington Street in Ottawa or on the campus of your local university. You do not get to live there and just say, well, it's protected speech, it's free speech, it's, I'm protesting. Okay, well, it's 9 o'clock at night. Go home, come back tomorrow. They're not doing that. The university administrations across the country, outside of Alberta, are showing incredible weakness at the moment, and that will only lead to more protests like this and more extreme demands.
Brian, a court case we're keeping a close eye on is the court case in the trial of one of the Freedom Convoy organizers, Pat King, which has begun in Ottawa. He faces a long list of charges, including mischief and obstructing police. Apparently, the King trial is causing a bit of a spectacle. What can you tell us so far?
Well, so Pat King's often called an organizer of the Freedom Convoy. People like Tamara Leach and others might disagree with that. Pat King is someone that latched onto the Freedom Convoy movement. He is someone that the organizers, like Baber, like Leach, tried to distance themselves from early on because he did attract an unsavory group. He made statements that went beyond the pale. I remember some of his statements about shootings and things like that that make you stop and say, wait a minute, this is not good political hygiene. And so by the time they got to Ottawa, the main organizers had distanced themselves from King. But I still think that the charges against him are mainly political and trumped up. He is being charged with mischief in a way that the organizers of these encampments never will be. He is being prosecuted for political reasons. I'm not saying he didn't break any laws, but lots of laws are broken in this way. The organizers of the encampments will not face the same scrutiny. One of the reasons that he was charged was organizing a slow roll by the Ottawa airport. And that is where you just take a bunch of vehicles and you stop people from getting to the airport by driving slowly in a circular fashion around the airport, and no one can get to their flights. Look, that is a giant pain and it is illegal, and you should be charged for something like that. But we are more than 2 years on from that, and he's just getting a trial. This is an incredibly political process. Does he deserve some charges? Yeah. Is it a massive national interest case? No, it's mischief. And he should have been charged with that. He should have been convicted or acquitted long ago. But our political system and our judicial system don't move at the speed they should.
Brian, a story you broke a couple of months ago was how Luca Magnotta, despite his heinous crimes, was transferred to a medium security prison. We all have that story. Now, a new report says prison officials opted for secrecy around the transfer. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so it was back in March, got the documents, released the documents, and then shortly after that, Conservative MP Frank Caputo, who didn't know I was working on this story, released a video saying, I saw Luca Magnotta at this prison in Quebec, this medium security prison called La Macasa. And so there were a bunch of access to information requests put in by various media outlets. And what they show is that in 2022, as they were moving Magnotta And what we learned is that Magnotta was moved to La Casa before Paul Bernardo was. Since then, we've been told Russell Williams is at this facility. A bunch of other people with heinous crimes under their belts are at this facility. It seems to be the dumping ground for the worst of the worst who should be behind a maximum security wall. So in 2022, the internal documents show that Correctional Services Canada knew this was going to be controversial, and they sent out memos to their staff saying, do not talk about this. Do not release information on this. There are privacy concerns here. Well, the laws governing this actually allow for the release of information if there is a public interest. And someone like Luca Magnotta definitely meets the public interest criteria. But if you recall, part of the reason that Marco Mendicino ended up being removed from his post as public safety minister was over the whole transfer of Paul Bernardo and saying, well, he didn't know and blaming officials. These documents show Mendicino's office was made fully aware of Luca Magnotta's transfer. They knew everything about it and just decided that they would go along with the privacy factor on this. So when they feigned outrage after Bernardo, we now know that that was completely fake. Correctional Services Canada just believes that they should be the ones in charge. They make the decisions. Nobody else should have any say, including the politicians.
Now, Brian, since we last chatted, there was a vote in Parliament that sought to change the law so that multiple murderers and dangerous offenders would be required to be housed in a maximum security prison. The idea was supported by the Conservatives, but shot down by the Liberal NDP coalition and the Bloc. Now, some would argue that makes those other parties look like they may appear to be soft on crime.
Oh, they definitely are soft on crime, and they make no bones about it. They are with the people at Correctional Services Canada that say, well, only experts should make these decisions. Let me fill you in, Hal. Let me fill you in. Let me fill in your viewers. Correctional Services Canada only does what our elected officials tell them to do. All of the laws, all of the regulations around who is housed where, how these decisions are made, these are passed by Parliament. And the Trudeau government has been reducing the threshold over and over again for several years now. And that's why Magnotta was transferred. That's why Bernardo was transferred. That's why Russell Williams was transferred. They set out the criteria, and then Correctional Services Canada implements that. Well, the Conservatives said, hold on. We're not going to pick on Paul Bernardo specifically. We're not going to pick on Luca Magnotta specifically, but we can't, and you shouldn't have politicians dictating, okay, that prisoner deserves especially harsh treatment, go get them. We don't want that. But politicians, our elected officials, can say specific classes of prisoners need to be treated in a certain way. And that's what this private member's bill attempted to do. They wanted to say that if you were a multiple murderer, if you were a dangerous offender, then you should be housed in a maximum security facility. We're not talking about somebody who, in an act of passion, an error of judgment, ends up killing somebody. We're talking about people who have killed multiple people. We're talking about people who have been deemed by the courts to be dangerous offenders, which means they have an indefinite jail time. Those people should be housed in maximum security. And the other party said, no. They want you to believe that they're in favor of the science, as they always call it, the experts, the evidence. No, that's not what they're all about. They're about being soft on crime, being soft on prisoners, soft on convicts. That is what this is all about. It is a worldview that I think is at odds with the general public, including an awful lot of Canadians who vote for the NDP, who vote for the Bloc Québécois, who vote for the Liberals. A lot of Canadians who vote for these parties, they don't want this sort of thing to be happening. But it's a philosophy that has infected the political elites.
The most recent jobs report says 90,000 jobs were created across the country in April. But despite that, you're warning that overall jobs report, you may have some serious concerns about it. Can you explain?
Well, once again, this past month, the number of jobs created did not surpass the number of people added to the labor force. We've got incredibly high immigration numbers right now, not just permanent residents coming in, but temporary foreign workers, temporary foreign students. And the temporary foreign students have been granted higher work exemptions or work permits. by the Trudeau Liberals. And so they're adding to the workforce every single month. And so, yeah, we created 90,000 jobs, 50,000 were part-time, 40,000 were full-time. That's always worrisome when you see it like that. But, if it's a 1 month thing, you don't worry. But here's where you have to worry, is that over the last year, we've added 256,000 people to the unemployment lines. Why? Because of mass immigration. As Justin Trudeau has said, we are bringing in people faster than we can absorb them. I don't know how that's fair to them or fair to people already here, that we're bringing in more people than we can create jobs for, more people than we have houses for, more people than we have family doctors for. We've got a crisis of this happening already, and we just keep adding more and more people. So there's that side of it. The 90,000 jobs created, okay, great. But we added 108,000 people, I believe it was, to the labor force in the month of April alone. We added over the last year, as I said, 256,000 people to the unemployment line. Our unemployment rate went from 5% in April 2023 to 6.1% in April 2024. And then you look at where are the jobs created. Over the last year, 398,000 jobs created, Hal. 208,000, or 52%, were government jobs. That is untenable. Generally speaking, you want between 15 to 20% of the workforce being in the public service. That's traditionally where it's fluctuated within over several years. The Trudeau government's put that up to 22, almost 23%. And over half of the jobs created in the last year were for federal, provincial, or municipal governments. You're not going to have a healthy economy if that is where all the job creation is.
Brian, another poll has come out this week which shows that the federal Tories have a huge lead over the Liberal NDP coalition. Nano says it's about 20 points right now. So if an election was held today, it would be a landslide win for Pierre Poilievre.
Absolutely would be. We're seeing projections of as many as 220 seats for the Conservatives, 64 for the Liberals. Think about that. The Liberals are at, I believe, 159 right now. They would lose a tremendous amount of seats. Remember, we're adding, I think, 7 seats across the country in the next election. Forgive me if I've got the numbers off slightly, but it's about 7 seats. And most of those are expected to go to the Conservatives, but they're also winning in areas across the country. When you've got, 2 Liberals in Alberta right now, 2 Liberals and 1 New Democrat. You might have 1 New Democrat after the next election. British Columbia has about 17 Liberals. Expect that to drop into single digits. Where on the single digits? We don't know. Manitoba, probably going to drop down to about 4 Liberals, if that, in the next election. And in Ontario, where more than half the Liberal caucus is right now, they're going to be decimated. They will be reduced to Fortress Toronto. I remember at one point there was, between London, Ontario, that was the furthest west you could find a Liberal in Ontario. Between London, Ontario, and Vancouver, there was 1 Liberal MP at one point. I believe it was Ralph Goodale. We could be looking at that sort of thing, where across the prairies, there's next to no Liberals, very small numbers, and even in Ontario, reduced to very small positions held. But it's going to be fascinating to watch. Trudeau doesn't seem to be ready to go. He was up at an announcement today, still rallying the troops, rallying the cause, and he doesn't seem to be ready to take that walk in the snow or the sand or any other substance.
So no talk of Mark Carney, the former Bank of Canada governor, replacing Justin Trudeau? He's not reading the room, I guess?
Mark Carney would be a gift to the Conservatives and would result in, 240 seats for the Conservatives. The Liberals would be an even worse place. One of my colleagues, Warren Kinsella, has described him as Michael Ignatieff with a pocket calculator. He was just in France yesterday or the day before, meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron about going to a net zero economy. He is a jet setter who has spent most of his career outside of Canada. The just visiting ads write themselves. The fact that he was a Goldman Sachs banker, central banker for Canada and Britain, none of that lends him or would help him in dealing with the fact that Canadians have an affordability crisis that he simply cannot relate to and doesn't have answers for.
Political reporter and Sun columnist Brian Lilley, thanks so much for joining us once again from Toronto.
Thank you, Hal.
Every year in Canada, approximately 100,000 abortions take place, which is the equivalent of 10 classrooms of children disappearing each day of the year. Is this something we as Canadians should be concerned about? Joining us today from Coaldale is Dwayne Kaninen-Belt. He's a board member of Lethbridge and District Pro-Life, as well as Elsie's House. He is joined with Dana Van Kamen, who is involved in the Coaldale Christian School ARPA Club. Good to have you both with us.
Wonderful to be here, Naveen.
So Dana, you're up first. Can you just tell us about the ARPA Club in your school and what it is all about?
Yeah, the ARPA Club is a bunch of high school kids who get together to take political action, and our job is to equip and educate the public about abortion and other political matters.
And you have an upcoming Life Day at the school. What is that?
Life Day is a day that we take to celebrate life. We believe that we are all made in the image of God and we all have values, so we take a day to celebrate that very thing. We pick a theme. So this year's theme, we picked the Olympics, and we have hosted a bunch of games with all grades, and we have a lot of fun. And we have a apologetics section in the morning where we learn about abortion and the issue, and then we have fun in the afternoon.
And what has been your experience with other kids your age outside of your school?
I was recently in Calgary, and we went on the streets and we talked to a bunch of people who were just walking by, and many of the young people didn't actually have much of an opinion on abortion, especially the young guys. If you talk to a teenager, a young male teenager, they didn't really know what they thought, so it was easy to show them the problems with abortion. While the young girls, they mostly had a strong pro-choice stance on abortion.
So when talking with other guys, do you feel that it's none of their business to get involved in abortion because it's a women's issue?
Well, I would say that it takes two to make a child, so that therefore it makes it a men's issue as well. And many of the people that I talked to didn't really see it as much of it, like they saw it as a women's issue, but they also saw that it was their responsibility as well.
And to what degree are young people concerned about abortion? And you touched a little bit about their awareness level. Can you expand on that a little bit more?
Young people, I would say, many of them didn't really have an opinion. If you ask them, like, what were your thoughts on abortion? The majority of them answered, well, I don't know, or I have never really thought about that. So that was interesting.
And Dwayne, where are we at in Canada right now? Are attitudes toward abortion changing, or are they remaining the same?
Well, I think attitudes are starting to change. Certainly, it's an issue that continues to be front and center in the media. We still have, like you said earlier, 100,000 abortions a year, which is a real tragedy. And we're very excited to see young people like Dana and other young people mobilizing to make a difference on this issue. The only way that this is going to change is having the next generation stand up, recognizing that life has value from conception until natural death, and be willing to make a stand on that and then get involved politically carrying out their faith. I'm very encouraged that here in Lethbridge, we have a large youth portion of Lethbridge and District Pro-Life. Here at our school, we have 30 kids involved in the local ARPA Club. So that's encouraging, and hopefully that can kind of swing the tide for people to recognize that all people have value, even if they're in their mother's womb.
I'm glad you touched on that because just before the interview, we talked about how it seems more important than ever to get young people involved in politics, even at a younger age. Can you touch on that?
Absolutely. One of the encouraging things that I'm seeing in youth right now is that they're willing to stand up and to say what they believe. It used to be people were intimidated to do that, and if someone came up against you with a view that was different than yours, they would kind of melt away. But I see the youth of this generation, no matter what their view are, being willing to stand up and debate and to talk. So that's encouraging. So if we can get young people involved in political action and carrying out their faith and being able to be comfortable at recognizing that some other people may have different opinion than you, but be able to stand up for what they believe is really important.
And we're talking about a very divisive issue here. Why do you think so many Canadians are unsure about their feelings toward abortion? Is it likely most people just don't give much thought to this, or is it a lack of knowledge? Is it because we don't believe the fetus is a human being?
Well, I think it's a combination of all of those things. Certainly, our job as Lethbridge and District Pro-Life and as pro-life people across the country is to educate people that the unborn are human. And so there's a lot of people that believe the unborn is just a glob of cells or something, other than human. But when we think about it scientifically, logically, human parents get together, they have human children. And so the unborn from the time of conception are human. Once people realize that, then usually it's pretty quick for them to jump fully on board the pro-life movement that then all people have value. So you're partly right. People are indifferent or they haven't thought about it. But once the issue is set before them and they actually think about it, it makes sense that all people have value and that we need to stand up for them.
And Dana, I got the same question for you. Do you feel that the issue is people just don't give much thought to this, or is it because is it a lack of knowledge, or people just don't believe the fetus is a human being? What are your thoughts?
I'd say that for lack of knowledge, people don't really know the consequences that abortion has on the child, and they don't understand the consequences, like the mental and physical consequences on the mother as well as the father. They both suffer from abortions. Like, it's actually really hard. And many of the public don't really know those things. Like, it's kind of hidden in the basement. No one really talks about it. So yeah, lack of knowledge for that. And people deny the fact that the child is a human. Because I think that every single woman who misses her period and now is pregnant isn't like, wow, I got this clump of cells growing in me, like this clump of cells is kicking me. Like, it's a child, but so society wants to deny the fact that it's a child so that they have an excuse to kill it.
And when you talk with people that are pro-choice, what are those conversations like?
Those conversations are fairly, I would say they're fairly engaging. You start off relatively, you understand each other, and they're not like angry conversations. And you have to like learn to talk to people about it, because there's certain things that you should say and there's certain things you shouldn't say when you're having a conversation, especially if they disagree with you. But it's easy to help them feel more negatively at the end of a conversation when you show them what abortion really does.
So these conversations, they're more or less civil, would you say?
Yeah, they are.
Dwayne, can you give us a brief snapshot of what Elsie's House is all about and why it's so important to raise money to support this?
Absolutely. Elsie's House is a local shelter here in town where women who are in crisis pregnancies can come and live during their pregnancy and for a time afterwards. The idea is that a woman who finds herself in a crisis pregnancy comes and lives at Elsie's House. She's not just getting room and board there, but she's getting training. And so she takes courses on parenting, on budgeting, on physical health, on mental health. She gets counseling. She goes to her doctor's appointments, and she's preparing to become a wonderful mother. Once the child is born, we help her, go through those first 9 months of raising the child and being a parent and learning all the skills that they need to be a good parent. And then at the end of that time frame, they've been putting some money into the program the whole time. We give them all that money back so that they can go out, they get an apartment, they can live independently, and they become, independent living, wonderful parents. So that's kind of the idea. And so it's really important that we raise funds to offer this. Right now, we have 3 ladies living in the house. It's been full for years now. And we've been expanding our work. And so we're trying to find another location where more ladies can stay. But what we found is successful is that ladies who aren't living with us, who still would like the programming, now come in and receive the programming, even though they're not living there. So that's a great way of us expanding our work without having to expand our footprints. And so now we have many young girls into programming. So we want to come alongside these people and help them as best we can and show them the love of Christ and show them the love of the pro-life community.
And what kind of funding is needed for someone to stay at Elsie's house, and how long is the stay?
Sure. So people are not accepted or rejected based on their financial situation. Everybody has a different situation. Some get funding from the government, some have money. We treat each one individually. That's not a factor. It's also not a factor what religion or anything that they are. We're open to anybody who finds themselves in a crisis pregnancy. And so then we have a number of standards that we go through in order to see if this person is good for the program. Quite frankly, we're looking for people who want the programming, not just looking for a place to stay, but they want the programming in order to improve. And so once we find those people, those are the ones we welcome in and those are the ones that we work with.
And do you have any success stories or testimonies to share?
Oh, absolutely. When I see the pictures, we have several employees that work there, and Christine's our wonderful executive director. And on occasion, she'll send us a picture with, a picture of her holding a few babies of ladies who were abortion minded, who decided, okay, I'll try and go through this program. And now they've just turned into wonderful mothers and they're getting their lives figured out and they're getting their feet on the ground. Yeah, those are just wonderful, wonderful moments. And thankfully, they happen quite a bit. So very encouraging.
You say that there's some people that go there that are abortion minded. What kind of struggle is that to go into such a program?
Yeah, well, oftentimes the people that reach out to us, they don't know. Are they going to keep the child? Are they going to abort the child? They're uncertain of what they want to do. And so then we try to encourage them, right, that this child has value and that we're going to come alongside them and help them to become parents and to protect their child. And when they come on board, it's life changing for them, where suddenly they realize they're going to be a mother and they have a child. And it's wonderful to see that change, and it just gives them hope and courage because they're not in this situation because their lives have been easy. Oftentimes there's a lot of difficult challenges that they're facing. So however we can come alongside them and support them, that's what we want to do. And so at Lethbridge and District Pro-Life, we certainly do our education, we do our campaigns, we do our advertising, but we also have many programs where we provide daycaring locations, help for mothers, help for families, where we come alongside and give women real support. You often hear from a pro-choice movement, that they're helping women. We feel that women deserve better than abortion and killing their child. And that if you really want to help them, you'll help them come alongside them, raise their children and give them the supports that they need.
And how do you advertise? How do you get the word out? Because often advertising campaigns are met with opposition.
Sure. Well, the nice thing about Elsie's house, it doesn't matter whether you're pro-choice or pro-life. When you have a young lady that's in a crisis pregnancy, everybody wants to help out. And so we're very thankful that we work with a lot of government agencies, placing women, working with them. We don't try and duplicate resources in town. We try and use all the ones so that we can all work together. And so we do not have big opposition at all to Elsie's house, because no matter what side of the issue you're on, this is something that people support. We get several applications every week, so the word is out there. It's at the places where women in crisis would go, Lethbridge Crisis Pregnancy Center and other places. They spread this information. Online, there's a website to Elsie's House, I think it's .com. And then we do some advertising, some targeted advertising on social media. We put out posts each month that help new mothers. And so the word is put out that way. But our problem right now is not getting the word out. Our problem is finding the facilities and space to give the programming for the demand that's there.
Now, let's talk about your annual Hike for Life that is coming up on Saturday, June 8th. Can you share some details as to the start time, where to meet, and what will be taking place and what donations will be going towards?
Absolutely. So thank you for bringing that up. So the annual Hike for Life is held on Saturday, June 8. It's at the Kiwanis Shelter at Henderson Lake. Starts at 9 a.m. in the morning and it goes till about noon. This is really a celebration of life. We believe that people have value from conception until natural death. So we're going to celebrate life on that day. As I said earlier, we do a lot of different things in pro-life. We certainly educate, we put out advertising, we protest, we pray. But on this day, we celebrate life. And so people can come, there's no fee, it's free. They come, there's games for the kids, there's face painting, there's balloons, there's food, there's drink, there's free t-shirts for everybody. And we want you to come and celebrate life. But not only do we want people come, there are people that get sponsors to come and donate on the day towards Elsie's House, towards our staff, and towards our programs. And so it's our biggest fundraiser of the year. It usually raises over $60,000 towards our programs. And so it's a great day. We get 300-400 people out. And again, we love you to raise money for it, but we'd also just like you to come and celebrate life with us on that day. It's a really fun event.
Seems like you're expecting a very good turnout for this. Now, speaking of hikes or marches, the annual Canadian March for Life took place on May 9th. Can you give us a bit of a review how that event went, and was there a large turnout for that as well?
Absolutely. So that March for Life is run by Campaign Life, a national organization. So not specifically us, it is certainly something that we promote and support. This year's theme was I Will Never Forget. The big events were in Ottawa and Edmonton, but there were also events all across the country. Tens of thousands of people are mobilized to let our politicians, to let our leaders, and to let our society know that there are a lot of pro-life people around who think it's ridiculous that Canada, alongside China and North Korea, are the only countries in the world that don't have laws protecting the unborn. And so it was a great event. You know, I'd like to see the media give it more publicity, but people were out in droves and it really raises awareness. And it's a great event for the pro-life community.
Dwayne Kaninen-Belt is with the Lethbridge and District Pro-Life Association, and Dana Van Kamen is involved in the Coaldale Christian School ARPA Club. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm Naveen Day. On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, thanks for watching.